Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Thad Kalo, CEO of BOL Agency, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today as we are here to dive into something that's transforming how to go-to-market teams engage, convert, and scale 6sense intelligent workflows in action. Today, it's all about bridging the gap between strategy and execution, the insights we have about our best accounts, and the actions we need to take to reach them. No one embodies that change more or that opportunity than our guest, Elise Spicer, Senior Global Marketing Campaigns Manager for Forescout. When Forescout's marketing team led by Elise came to us, they had a clear vision but a common challenge. They knew which accounts were in market. Their 6QA signals were lighting up left and right, but acting on those signals efficiently was easier said than done. That's when our team, specifically led by our Senior Director of Paid Media and ABM, Lizzie Magnarelli, stepped in. So whether you're here as a marketer, as a marketing ops pro, as a rev ops leader, my advice is to listen for the how, because this technology, of course, is impressive, but the true differentiator is how teams like Elise and Lizzie are connecting systems and strategy. With that, I'll hand it over to Elise and Lizzie to walk you through the intelligent workflow strategy and how it is taking shape to drive the scalable, data-driven engagement throughout all of Forescout.
Thanks, Dad. Yeah, so just to sort of set the stage a little bit, Forescout had been working on doing some more vertical specific campaigns and getting a little bit smarter about getting that right piece of content at the right time to the accounts, obviously leveraging 6sense. And so, being the lean team that we are, we came to our friends at BOL and we asked them, like, how can we get smarter, better at this without a lot of these manual things that we need to do. And Lizzie brought workflows to us, and we came up with a strategy and a plan that I think really is helping our very lean team to be able to really nail some of the right time, right content for the verticals that we're running.
Yeah, and we can actually walk through a couple of examples here. The first being just a really simplified workflow for getting some contacts from healthcare 6QAs over to our sales team. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and walk us through a couple different examples of these workflows and how you might be able to use them in your own organization, as well as how we're using them with the Forescout team. So before we get into the down and dirty intro to the workflow that we built for healthcare specifically, Elise, do you want to give a quick overview of how this need arose within your team?
Yeah, for sure. So we had launched a fairly successful ABM campaign within the healthcare industry, and we were definitely starting to see a lot of these previously unaware accounts start to ping up in the 6sense data, right? So moving stages and stuff like that. What we really needed was a smart way for us to align with the BDRs and make sure that when it was time for them to reach out to these accounts, that they could hit the ground running with the right people and make sure that they were set up for success when it came time to capitalize on the work that we'd already done, warming these accounts up and making them sales ready. And so that's when we came to BOL and with this sort of question, like, okay, we need to make sure the right buying committee are on these accounts when they're ready to go from this segment. How do we do this?
Yeah, and that's an absolutely perfect use case for workflows, and why we went with that as a team. Really making sure that things are done in a strategic way, but also in a way that's really scalable, where it's not BDRs having to go into 6sense and identify what those 6QA accounts are and then going and finding contacts on their own. This really makes it a much less manual and scalable process for them, and makes it a lot more likely that they'll be able to adopt that process. The more complexity we can take out of it, the better. As with every workflow, we did start with a segment. In this case, we started with a healthcare segment that focuses on all of the target accounts that Forescout has within healthcare across the globe. And then we wanted to take a look at, hey, of those, which ones are 6QAing? We have a specific look back for this, which is configurable within the node for the decision around 6QA, where we're able to say, okay, let's look at any 6QAs that happened after a certain date. In this case, this was around when we were looking to launch it. We didn't want a bunch of historical 6QAs coming in. We really wanted this to be more of a real-time approach. In this case, there's nothing that we want to do with accounts that did not 6QA. So we said, hey, if the conditions are not met, don't do anything. In other scenarios, you may say, okay, if they're not 6QAing, let's go ahead and add them to a 6sense display account. That's something that you could potentially do through workflows as well, just not in this particular one that we're looking at here. From there, what we wanted to look at was, are these accounts already in CRM? So this allows us to make sure that the infrastructure within Forescout's CRM is there to ingest any information about the accounts. We don't want to start populating with a bunch of accounts that they don't know about, that they don't care about. For this specific exercise, there is a universe where you could say, hey, we want to start adding additional accounts to CRM to keep those on sales and marketing's radar, just not the use case that we were going with in this case. So what we looked at here is just a quick condition on, are they in CRM, yes or no? If yes, continue on. Again, we didn't want to look at anything that didn't match this criteria, so we said do nothing. The next few steps are really where collaboration was essential. So the workflow we're looking at here is for contact purchasing. So with that, there's a lot of nuance between marketing, sales, and operations. We want to make sure they're the right types of contacts that sales is looking for. So are these the right titles? Are they the right seniorities? Are there other filters we need to be considering? What types of fields do we need? Do we need to make sure that they have a direct dial or anything like that? So working with Elise and her team on the sales side to look at what are the actual criteria for that, but then also working with ops to determine, okay, what are the actual fields that need to be populated as we're pushing these contacts into CRM.
So from the, if I can share a bit of context there, what we're trying to do with this is really set up our BDR team for success when these accounts become 6QAs. We all know buying cycles are complex. There's lots of buyer roles involved, and the idea is to have the right people ready to go for those BDRs. So it was really important at this point to make sure that we were bringing in, and in this case, the leader of our BDR team, to come in and verify, yep, these are the right people, and then have them on board with the plan that we're making here as well. I think that's an important point.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate the call out there, Elise. And what we did with them is just walk through all the different filters that we have available for contact acquisition. So looking at the seniorities that we care about, looking at the functions within that. We do have a specific country focus within this particular workflow. We didn't want to go completely global with it, wanted to have a little bit more focus there, so selected some specific countries as well. There's a number of different things you can do within this universe filters wise, but this matched our needs. The nice thing is, for the most part, you should only have to do this once, unless something dramatic changes within your CRM. So having that mapping profile in place, either while you're building out the workflow or as you're getting ready to set up workflows in general, is just really important to make sure that everything goes where it needs to go.
The other thing too on that point is we actually looked at orchestration for this originally, and it didn't have that level of detail that we needed. So workflow was really like the right fit for this one.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing that we love about workflows is if we said, hey, we then want to take this action and then layer in some other actions at the same time using the same segment, this can be a living, breathing workflow where it can change all the time. We can add additional campaigns here. We can add different segment criteria. We can change where we're pushing them into Salesforce. We can change the campaign. So it makes it a really dynamic way of working that connects a lot of disparate systems and a lot of disparate teams in a centralized place that everyone has access to. Then from there, we were able to say, okay, let's go ahead and add those to a Salesforce campaign, which we know that the sales team will be able to go in and actually look at the contacts that are acquired within this specific campaign. The nice thing with that is it makes it very easy for Elise and her team to say, hey, this is where you look for this contact acquisition. We can educate them on where did these contacts come from? What is the workflow behind it? So it's not just a bunch of random contacts going into CRM that no one knows what to do with.
Yeah,
So
and I
that,
think that the other part of that that was important is we can actually separate performance of contacts that we acquired versus ones that we had perhaps acquired from a different source, right? So we're using 6sense to acquire the contacts, and we want to see what the performance is of that group of people.
so that's just a quick little contact acquisition workflow. I just want to show quickly what this could look like as a built out program, also using workflows. So next we'll move on to looking at more of a built out full funnel approach using workflows. In this case, looking at verticalization specifically and how that flows into specific campaigns. So Elise, if you want to give us a quick rundown of how verticalization fits into your overall strategy and why workflows is a good fit for your team.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a pretty lean team. It's myself and my colleague pretty much do all of the digital channels, paid and some organic as well. And so on top of horizontal campaigns that we run, we're also delving into verticals this year, specific ones. And, you know, there's a lot of moving parts to these things. Like we're targeting at all the different stages, and it's a lot to keep track of. And when there's only two of you and you have all these other responsibilities, like we really need a smart way to capitalize on all the work we've done up front with the ABM campaign. So like aligning with our sales team on the account lists and making sure we're going after the right people. But this is a really smart way, like once we've done all that legwork, to make sure again that we are doing right time, right content into the accounts based on where they're at in the cycle. And really just, you know, automating a lot of that stuff and keeping it as easy as possible for us to manage as a lean team. And so of course, again, we reach out to our colleagues at BOL. Actually, I think BOL, you brought this to us, that we would want to have a look at this workflow to help manage a lot of that complexity.
Yeah, and what we love about that is, you know, because you are a lean team, workflows is that centralized place where you can really make sure that everything that should be happening is happening. It makes sure that no part of the segment goes missing, where we can say, okay, target and awareness does this, consideration does this, and just make sure that we're able to really wrap that experience around each vertical. So we can dive into a quick walkthrough of what that looks like functionally in the workflow here. So this is just one little node within an entire workflow. It's actually this little stem here, basically. But you can see that it can become this big, larger campaign orchestration opportunity. So in this case, what we built out here is looking at the overall target account list for all regions globally for 2025. And then we said, okay, one thing that's really important to Forescout for this year is verticalization by industry. So we had our first decision point being, let's make sure that these folks fall into the right industry categories for the campaigns that we're looking to run, because content is going to be different by industry. The things that they need are going to be different. Our budgets are different. The way that we set up our campaigns are different. So that's kind of that first set of criteria. And then jumping in from there into an in-market stage using 6sense predictive to help us align those journeys in a meaningful way, where we can then push those segments into media campaigns or into contact acquisition flows. So this starts to be a really powerful tool where you can imagine on a quarterly or annual basis, you're able to say, what are the priorities for us? What does our segmentation approach look like? How do we want to operationalize that into campaigns and start to build out these larger, more robust workflows over time? And again, these are editable. They can be changed. You could clone this quarter to quarter and create new variations. So it does become a very powerful tool as you start to build on top of some of these actions across the journey.
One thing that I think we're really looking forward to adding to this is doing some smart things with AI email and integrating some of the BDR actions in here, which I know we can do. And so I think that's something I'm really looking forward to doing in 26.
Yeah. And as a media nerd on my side, being able to dynamically push these into LinkedIn, dynamically push them into a 6sense campaign, it makes things so much easier for us to know that the right criteria is being applied. We can do that from a segment standpoint, and that's what we've done historically, is create 15 different segments for 15 different purposes. Whereas in this scenario, we create one segment and then we create all of this decisioning that puts people into those right pathways. So it eliminates the need to have a bunch of segments that need to be managed and updated every time there's a change. So really creates scale nicely in that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Elise and Lizzie, thank you. What a brilliant inside look at what it really takes to design an intelligent workflow strategy that connects all the moving pieces and individual parts of a modern ABM program. What we saw today just wasn't a tech walkthrough. It was a masterclass in alignment, right? The collaboration between Forescout's team, BOL specialist, which shows what happens when you bring together strategy, operations, media, in all one aligned, connected process. That's the approach Elise and Lizzie have taken in what we would call accelerated confidence at BOL. It's the idea when you build clarity into your systems and strategy, you unlock speed, which is something that's so important in this world of AI today, right? Today's conversation was just a mere glimpse into the highlights of what the process looks like, the collaboration, the mapping, the strategic work, and the functional execution, and a roadmap for what's next. So as you think about your intelligent workflows journey, whether you're just starting out or trying to scale this, something that you've already built, I encourage you to take a page from this partnership. Again, a huge thank you to Elise and Lizzie. You did a fantastic job of bringing this story to life. There's much more that we can untap, of course. We will be sending a recording of today's webinar with a few follow-up resources. And until then, keep connecting your insights to action. And remember, when you pair strategy and automation and collaboration, growth accelerates. I guess this is the part where we look for questions. Any questions out there? It was just so thorough. Nothing. All right. I think with that, we can maybe call it a wrap. Unless there's anyone else that has any last minute ideas or questions, or Elise or Lizzie, any last minute words of wisdom?
It looks like there's a question in the chat. What's the benefit of using workflows versus setting these actions up in 6sense the old-fashioned way?
Oh, yeah. I think really what it comes down to is scale and efficiency. So when we were talking through that final workflow, I mentioned this is an alternate to creating, 15 different segments for 15 different campaigns. That becomes one orchestrated workflow where you have that master segment that flows down into all your different campaign segments, which is really awesome for scale. And then there's the element of collaboration as well. So being able to connect these disparate systems, disparate teams in this one centralized place. What I've really enjoyed about it is it's given us kind of this working template where we can say, here's what we need from an operations standpoint. Here's what we need from a campaign standpoint. Work collaboratively with Elise and her team to figure out who the right stakeholders are and really deploy those resources in a meaningful way. I don't know, Elise, if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
I think you nailed it, really. It's about almost think of it like organization. Like I can look at the workflow and I know everyone is in the right segment and they're getting the right offer, right? Going back to that right time, right message, we can be assured that that's going to happen because we've got it all mapped out in front of us.
With that, I'll just thank everyone who attended today. I appreciate all the feedback and education, Elise and Lizzie. And with that, I'll let everyone have a great rest of your Tuesday. Cheers.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.